Hello everyone, this is Alonzo. Want to know how to get your first cloud job? Then please register for our webinar. We'll teach you everything that you need to know and answer your questions along the way. Hope to see you there. Hello everyone, this is Alonzo. Want to know how to get your first cloud job? Then please register for our webinar. We'll teach you everything that you need to know and answer your questions along the way. Hope to see you there.
My name is Richard Ferrer, and I can say I am cloud hired.
That yes, come and join and get cloud hired. I'm cloud hired.
I'm cloud hired.
I'm cloud hired.
Hey, Go Cloud Architect family, I'm cloud hired.
Well, I'm cloud hired, guys.
So I'll just say I'm cloud hired.
I'm cloud hired.
I'm cloud hired thanks to Go Cloud Architects.
It worked for me, and now I'm cloud hired.
Because of Google Architect program, I am cloud hired.
See! I am cloud hired. Thank you, Mike and the GlowCloud team.
All right, here we are for another Cloud Career Q&A session with Mike Gibbs, founder and CEO of Go Cloud Careers. My name is Chris Johnson. I am the Chief Operating Officer here at Go Cloud Careers, and I'm going to be facilitating the Q&A. Might be answering some of your questions as well. But just wanted to welcome everybody here where we take any of your questions relating to cloud architect roles, cloud architect jobs, cloud architect training. What is a cloud architect? How to become a cloud architect? Any of those cloud architect questions. We'll also take questions about cloud engineer jobs. We know a lot of you out there are curious about the cloud engineer career and what cloud engineer training looks like versus cloud architect training. So we'll answer questions about what is a cloud engineer as well. If you've got questions about AWS cloud engineer or cloud architects or Azure cloud engineer and Azure cloud architects, this is the place to ask. We're here for you. Now, we know that there's this other event going on this week. So yeah, you may or may not have heard about it. Apparently AWS is doing something. I don't know. There's a little event that they're doing this week. So we understand if you might pop in and out. No reason not to check out what they've got going on. But yeah, if you've got any career questions, make sure to pop in. Make sure you ask them while you're here. So while we wait for some questions to come into the chat box, a couple of things that I want to make sure that everybody is aware of. And by the way, make sure to put your questions in the chat box so that we can answer them for you. But while we're waiting on those questions to come in, I want to make sure everybody's aware of a few things. So last week we had our Black Friday sale, and it was a great deal around for everybody. But that is now over with. No longer in existence. But if you missed it, guess what? We've got our Cyber Monday sale. With discount code Cyber Monday, you can get 35% off of our Cloud Architect Career Development Program. In particular, the Cloud Architect Development Plus program. So with that program comes hundreds and hundreds of hours of content, previous class sessions, Slack community, 3 times a week live classes for an entire year. The content is for you beyond the year, but the lot you have access to 3 live classes a week for an entire year, and only for 1 or 2 days pay for the average cloud architect. So make sure to take advantage of that. It's eligible for our Cloud Architect Career Development Program Plus and payment plans for that program. So make sure you take advantage of that. Let me make sure to put in the chat box the that information as well. So there it is in the chat box for you. Next thing I want to make sure everybody's aware of is our webinar. Make sure to register for our upcoming How to Get Your First Cloud Job webinar. On this webinar, we will explain anything and everything that you need to know about getting your first cloud architect job. Do you need experience or do you not need experience? What do you actually need to know? What are hiring managers expecting from the ideal cloud architect? We'll even talk about why we created the program. We'll talk about how to get past HR and deal with the crazy job descriptions that are out there. And we'll also tell you exactly what you need to learn and what you need to study to prepare to be a cloud architect. And we'll tell you how we can help you with that. So make sure you register for that webinar. We're actually going to be doing one tomorrow, Tuesday at 1 p.m. and we'll be doing another one again on Thursday. So make sure to join us if you've got any questions, want to learn a little bit more. Make sure to do that. And I'm going to put that in the chat box here as well. So bear with me just a second. All right. Register for the next free webinar. There it is. All right. And of course, make sure that you get your free copy of our AWS exam guide. This is free to you, updated for the most recent version of the certification exams. Hundreds of hours and hundreds of years of experience from all the contributors have gone into making this publication what it is. So make sure that you take advantage of that. That's free to you. I just want to reemphasize that is a free AWS certification guide for you. So make sure you take advantage of that. I'll put that link there in the chat box as well. So Mike, before we get to any questions, you want to chime in with anything? I know I've been talking for a little bit.
Welcome, everyone. For those in America, I hope you've had a fantastic Thanksgiving. And for those of you who are not, hope you had a great time anyway. I know I have a Greek Thanksgiving, which is kind of a cross between what we did in Greece, which is not Thanksgiving, and what we did in the US. So whatever you did, I hope it's a great holiday. Ask us your questions because I want to help you all get hired. Every last one of you.
All right. So let's get in here. Got a lot of hello messages. So I want to thank everybody for those. So our first question here is, are there any specialties for a cloud engineer?
Absolutely. So I want to make this clear. If you lived 5 lifetimes because you were a vampire and an immortal, you still wouldn't have enough time to learn all the cloud engineering jobs. That's how big this world actually is. If you lived 500 years, you still would not have enough time. And here's what happens when people try to learn everything. In effect, they spread themselves so thin, they absolutely know nothing. And if they're lucky enough to get hired, they're the first people to get laid off because they don't have the real skills. So yes, there are tremendous numbers of specialties for engineering. At the high end, which is where I spent my engineering work, there's consulting work. And why do I call it the high end? Because you work the least number of hours and you get paid the most. So here's your sales engineer or your technical marketing engineer. And what we do is we meet with clients, kind of like an architect, and we ask about, the technology they have, a little less business than the architect. And we really dive deep and help the architects design a big solution. But where the architects aren't necessarily creating a bill of materials, this is where the sales engineers get involved and they help design, present, and sell the solution, much less than the architect on the business side, much more on the deep technical side. Now, by comparison, at the high end, we also have something that is called the technical marketing engineer. And this is a highly specialist engineer. Basically, you'd have somebody like me that would say focus in BGP, that would be working with the people that write the BGP code for the routers and the product manager. And we'd be the customer-facing BGP experts. That would be what's called the technical marketing engineer. New firewall gets developed, new cloud service, we go help sell it. And it's a deeply technical person that goes along with a business development manager to help explain things. Now, when it comes to cloud engineering, we have cloud engineers that focus on security. We have cloud engineers that focus on networking. We have cloud engineers that focus on big data. We have cloud engineers that focus more on, automation. And, there's all kinds of these things. And inside of these things, you could still break it down. You could be, for example, a cloud network engineer, and you could be focused on BGP. Somebody else could be a cloud network engineer that's focused on WAN technologies such as SASE or software-defined networking. So yes, tell me what you like. And you could literally spend hundreds of years learning different specialties in cloud engineering careers, and they're all good. The key is, what do you like? Do you enjoy more sales where you're less hands-on? Sales engineering. Do you love the network like me, where you want to dive deep into networking? Well, that's a good specialty. How about security? Do you want to be a cloud offensive security architect or security engineer where you're breaking into systems with penetration testing to figure out what they need? Or do you want to be a cloud defensive security engineer? It's a totally different career where you're defending against hackers. So sure, lots and lots and lots of cloud engineering specialties. And the better you are at every one of these things, the better you will be. And just like architects, you can also specialize in an industry. For example, I know cloud engineers that focus on the healthcare industry and its peculiar needs. And trust me, there's a lot of it. Also, for example, you could be focusing on the banking industry if you know that. So lots and lots of cloud engineering specialties, all wonderful. The key is, what do you actually like to do? Give me your goals, and I can even give you some guidance on how to get there.
All right, so let's look at our next one. All right, so I'm going to start off the next one, and I'm going to let you finish it. So the next question is, what kind of certifications do I need as a cloud infrastructure networking architect? So before Mike answers, I'll steal a little bit of his thunder. Don't focus on the certification. Focus on the knowledge. If you've got the knowledge, then you can get whatever certification you feel like you need. But it's the knowledge that's important, and the ability to be able to communicate that knowledge and show that competency and that understanding, whether in an interview or whether through branding yourself by writing about the knowledge, writing publication, producing a video, producing content about this knowledge. And then utilizing that to your advantage to build your brand and then make it in tandem with your resume, being able to communicate this knowledge in a short form through your resume. That's the important part. I mean, yes, the certification might be nice and all, but it doesn't really show that you actually know what that certification is attempting to show that you know. Many certifications have become worthless and have become viewed as just rubber stamps by hiring managers and those that are actually looking to hire people. At the very least, or at the very most, they'll look at it as, okay, this person might know something. They might, but don't worry about the certification as much as the knowledge. So I'm gonna, after having said that, I'm gonna rephrase it, Mike, if you'll allow me to. What knowledge do I need as a cloud infrastructure networking architect? And then after the knowledge, are there certifications that might correlate with that knowledge?
Absolutely. So I'm going to flip that in that way. So Canis, I'm going to make this very clear. There is no certification in the entire world that will ever get you an architect job ever. Because an architect designs, presents, and sells, and 0 of the certifications teach you how to design, present, and sell. Now, there is one certification, if you're interested in doing it, that will help you get a cloud network architect job. One. And it's going to cost you between $10,000 to $40,000 to do it right, and it's the Cisco Certified Internet Expert. It's the only certification in the entire world where a hiring manager will look at it and say, most likely the person knows something. It's the only one. And for example, in a job that didn't come to fruition, I was going to be a senior director at one of the hybrid cloud providers, and the position was offered to me and then canceled. They said, oh, Mike, good. You're a CCIE. It's the only certification in the world that you can't fake with lack of knowledge. The rest of them we view as worthless because we know you can pay somebody to take your test for you, or you can just go to one of the exam dump places and you can get a copy of the exam. So the real question is, there are 0 certifications except for the CCIE. The CCIE spent over $40,000 to do it, and that was 20 some years ago. And the CCIE is not worth what it used to be, and here's the reason why. When I did it, it was a miserable 2-day exam. 3 million people had attempted it, and I was the 6,400th guy to actually pass it. So that was what the failure rate was. First day, you had to build something impossible. You had to design it first and then build it. Second day, 80% of the people were gone, sent home. The beginning of the day, the people that actually do something. And at the end of the day, they would break it, and you'd have to fix it. Now, the test itself back then was $1,250. It was a 6-month wait to even take the test, and it had a 90+% failure rate. And the training for that was about $30,000 to $40,000. So fast forward in today's world, you can do the training for $5,000 to $10,000, and the exam itself is $1,500. And if you do that, read 75,000 pages, inside of 6 months to a year, you'll pass the exam. I'm going to tell you that right now. Now, the exam is going to cost more than our course, which could turn you into a cloud network architect and actually get you hired. So think about how and where you want to spend your time, effort, and money. Now, what do you need to be as a cloud network architect? Well, if you're really going to design people's networks, you need to understand them. So the IP addressing, subnetting, and supernetting, you're going to need a level of expertise that you can't even imagine. And here's the reason why. It's not just simple subnetting and supernetting. That's nothing. Here's the challenge. The IP addressing that you design determines the path that your traffic will actually design. And if you get the IP addressing wrong, the entire architecture will fall apart. So typically speaking, the people that do the IP addressing in a big enterprise are CCIE types with 10 to 15 years experience. So If you're going to do that, we could train you for that, but you got to get it and understand it well. Now, the next thing that you're going to really need to understand is WAN technologies. And whether it's Ethernet over MPLS, software-defined networking, private lines, when to use an SSL VPN, an IPsec VPN, software-defined networking, SASE, and all of that. Now, you're also going to have to understand that the cloud is really horrible with regards to networking. In fact, what they're doing now in cloud networking is what I did back in 1998 to 1999. So because of this, you're going to have to get really good at tunneling things through the network because the cloud can't handle it. So lots of GRE tunneling, like we used to have to do 20 years ago with AppleTalk and IPX networks, need to do this. Now, we're going to be dealing with multicast as well. So that means internet IGMP, and it means PIM sparse mode, PIM dense mode, and possibly to some degree DBMRP. These routing protocols you're going to need to know in and out to architect your traffic. Now, we're also going to get pretty involved in switching as a network architect. And that means VLANs, VLAN tagging, VLAN trunking. But if we do any fancy layer 2 stuff, and we will, we'll be getting involved in some fairly complicated spanning tree and rapid spanning tree. Now, because we're architects and not just a cloud architect, we're network architects, we need to know a lot more about our interior gateway protocols. So that means you're going to have a good knowledge of EIGRP because it's still used in some places. OSPF, and I don't mean minor depth. I mean, read 500 pages to 1,000 pages on OSPF and learn everything about those LSAs, the Dijkstra algorithm, the hello cycle. And then when you're done that, you're going to need to do the same thing for intermediate systems to intermediate systems. Then we hit BGP, and that's where the magic happens. I spent years just learning and studying BGP. So you're going to have to make sure you understand IBGP, EBGP, dealing with all the IBGP complexities, whether you're using route reflectors, confederation, and all those other things that you need to do to make it scale. Now, when we deal with networking things, we're going to be dealing with a lot of overlapping IP addressing. So that gets us into which NAT and when, one-to-one NAT, one-to-many NAT, static NAT, dynamic NAT, PAT. We're going to have to be dealing with DHCP servers and their broadcasts. So we're going to have to be pretty good at understanding subnet-directed broadcast and helper addresses and things like that. Now, on the networking side, a lot of our security is here. So realistically speaking, if you're dealing with hybrid and public clouds, you're going to need to know layer 2 security, whether they be layer 2 max access list, whether they be 802.1x authentication and things to that such. And those types of things, radius servers, Active Directory servers, because we deal with a lot of IAM concepts over here. Lots of knowledge on quality of service because we can use it to secure our systems. And, those are your primary things. To some degree in today's modern world, there's load balancers, there's some DNS, which sometimes is our job, sometimes there's not. And that's the main functions of our job is the network. Now, again, there is no career in today's world that you build over a certification. And the saddest thing is I see 90% of the people tank their career. They literally destroy it. Because instead of focusing on the knowledge to be great at their job, they're busy focused on certification, which for the most part is teaching you how to sell a vendor stuff. I mean, it's really what it is. It's almost vendor brainwashing. Here's my proprietary thing. Here's what it is. Go learn it. And then the reality of real life networking is we can't do that. 20 years ago, I wrote a paper on getting off of the proprietary EIGRP that Cisco designed, moving to OSPF. Cisco hired me 2 years after that. And working at Cisco, I never used a proprietary thing for a decade, and I was one of their lead architects. So it's about knowing these things, and you're not going to get it in a certification. The closest one is the CCIE, but you're not going to do the CCIE certification without spending $10,000 minimum to get the job done. And we could train you for $1,000 and actually get you hired as a cloud architect. Chris, you go to the next one.
All right, so let's see here. Okay, so the next one, I don't know if we'll be able to get into too many details about it just because of the nature of the topic, but Sean asked, can you explain what happened? They start off with assuming we know what they're talking about. How could we, as cloud architects, prevent this? In a recent cyber attack, hackers exploited a security bug and compromised millions of Twitter's account. All right, so for background, this was not a recent issue, and it was not a recent vulnerability. This is something that happened in 2021 that is coming back into the news because somebody made a post about it and their account got suspended. So that's why it's back in the news. But what happened was back in 2021, there was a vulnerability. I don't know why this was ever a possibility, but apparently you were able to search using a phone number or an email address and it would pull up the associated Twitter ID. Okay, that's a great vulnerability to have. And then apparently some bad actors automated this and collected 5.4 million pieces of information. So I don't know if we can talk about what happened, but Mike, if you want to talk about how architects might be able to prevent this type of thing, or we can also take the opportunity to talk about social engineering because that's what this is going to be used for at the end of the day. They're going to go in here and try and use this information for phishing. And so,
yeah, and we'll be fair. Now, Twitter itself has a lot of problems in their infrastructure. And they need a lot of the house cleanup that's going on to hire some really awesome architects that can design the right systems, make the code work smoothly. So there is that. Now, let's be fair. Here's where people are getting hacked all the time. They go to the cloud and they've got certified. So they got all these great certifications and they know how to configure things, but they don't know what and why they're configuring them. So that is the majority of what we're dealing with hacking-wise. It happens every single day on everybody using the cloud. The other place where things go really wrong, Sean, is people think this DevSecOps is security. And they have all these developers doing code checks and they view that as security. This is nothing. This is just one fragment of security. There is so much security that needs to be done on the network. And whether it's using two sets of next generation firewalls as opposed to silly business like AWS WAF, which is not adaptive in nature, followed by intrusion detection systems, followed by really strong access control lists and security groups and server hardening. Now, also, Sean, if they have their own network, there's so much layer 2 things they can do on their network, which you can't do on the cloud. They can do QoS and MAC address authentication, and they can really lock down these networks and to the degree that you can't even imagine. Now, when it comes to physical security, you need physical security. What are you doing on physical security? Me, I'm hiring some retired Navy SEALs and putting snipers on the roof, or Israeli commandos and putting people in there that are there. Some people's idea of security is a 70-year-old morbidly obese security guard that's walking on a cane to say, "Who are you? Let me check your ID." So I don't know enough about what's going on there, but there's a lot of things that could be done. So a really good architect does the following. They actually look at the assets that exist in that business. They quantify the cost of a breach, and they make sure that they've got the right information. And without the right architects, your engineers can never do this because the engineers can never sell the management, "Hey, you needed to go spend this $3 billion for this." But also, Sean, we have to really examine Twitter. It's been poorly run for a long time. It's losing $4 million a day. And when organizations are run poorly and fighting for their survival, and they're losing money, they tend not to make good architectural decisions. And there is that as well. So let's think about that. But a lot of the problems are actually human-oriented. I remember needing to get in to talk to a customer, and the customer wasn't there. And there was a receptionist. And I remember the receptionist when they had a beautiful new hairstyle. And it's like, "Hi, how are you? Wow, what'd you do with your hair? Oh, you look so nice today. Hey, I'm supposed to meet with this guy. I know he's been a little busy. Is there any chance you can get me to talk to him just for 2 minutes?" Now, that was completely legal and ethical. And sure, that front desk receptionist somehow found a way for me to speak to them. Likewise, I've done the same thing for guys that were bodybuilders. "Hey, you're looking big and bulky. You're working out." And that's part of, normal people in the sales process. But hackers use that too. Illegitimately, it's called social engineering. I'm from this department. I'm here. They make up stories. Can you just give me your password? I'm so sorry. I had it, but I forgot. All kinds of things. So the key is really systems locking them down. And it's the security policy, and it's the training of your end users. And it's making sure you have people that don't think the same. Twitter had everybody that all thought, and acted the same. And when you have everybody that thinks the same, you can find a common exploit and it works against everybody. But if you've got a various group of people from a wide variety of backgrounds and they all think differently, oh, now it's much harder to fight your way in, because now you got to deal with different kinds of attacks. So there's some of those things. But the reality is they didn't publish exactly what really happened. I don't completely study Twitter. I don't really spend most of my time thinking of social media networks. I think about, how do I get people hired? How do I get people paid more? And it's normal for me to get somebody a $100,000 raise after training. And that's my focus. How do I get my people there? But we do teach extreme security, and some good security architects with good sales skills and good communication skills can really make a big difference here. And why are those sales skills really critical? Well, if the architect doesn't have the right sales skills, how then do they go to the CEO and say, you need to spend this $1 billion? And if they can't convince the CEO to spend that $1 billion on locking the systems down, guess what? The systems don't get locked down and they're hacked. That's why, as architects, the ability to sell is probably more important than your ability to design. And here's the reason why. You can always bring molded people to help you to design, but if you can't convince the customer they need it, you can have the world's greatest design and it falls apart and it ends up as PowerPoint where that somebody doesn't buy. Now, tech skills are critical, but the last part, Sean, is nobody should ever design a security architecture like this by themselves. It really takes a team of 20 or 30 architects for an organization this size to make it perfect and make sure that you didn't miss anything. Want to go fast, go alone. Want to go far, go together. So all these big architectures take people.
All right. So I just want to let everyone know, we're going to be around for about another 20 or 30 minutes probably. So make sure that you get your questions in. Don't be shy. Don't hesitate. We're truly here to help clarify or give you any feedback to help you along on your cloud career journey. So make sure to bring us those questions. All right. So our next question is, what is the importance of Docker in a cloud architect career?
Aisha, not a whole heck of a lot. So it used to be that we would have Kubernetes manage our cluster and Docker is our runtime environment, which would host our containers. But now Kubernetes is going to be using its own container runtime module. So as we get there, Docker becomes less and less relevant. Now, Aisha, cloud engineers, specifically DevOps engineers, are configuring containers all the time. Cloud architects design the architecture. What does that mean? This is what the Kubernetes cluster needs to look like. These are where the servers that are going to host the pods exist. That's sort of where we get. Now, Docker is more of a small business than a big enterprise thing. Here's what I mean. On my system, I may be running multiple Docker containers. Yes. But in a big enterprise environment, we still will have Docker runtime modules and containers, but most things are going to go Kubernetes now because it's the big industry standard. And think of it this way. You can run a Kubernetes cluster, especially if you manage it yourself, and have it in your data center, have it in AWS, Azure, and Google Clouds all at the same time. Migrate your containers anywhere you want them, anywhere. And as long as you're not using some of these silly serverless environments and you're putting on a virtual machine, you can move that virtual machine from AWS to Azure to Nutanix to Oracle Cloud in moments' notice. So most things are going the way. That's why Elastic Compute Service is another dead thing that's going there. Docker is a runtime module. So we still will be using it in some places, but Kubernetes is deprecating that and using something else. And since Kubernetes is the future, I wouldn't spend too much time. But think of it this way. Physical server, right? Operating system, Docker runtime module, and then you pop your containers there. So you do need a container engine. But now that Kubernetes is going to be using its own platform instead of Docker, I think we're going to see Docker slowly die. Docker will still be there for the small business, home office business, running multiple containers on your computer. But I see much more migration to Kubernetes and bigger clusters moving forward. So for an architect that does big businesses, I don't think you're going to be touching this, a year or two from now. But you do need to understand containers, container orchestration, and the concept of a container runtime module.
All right. So Anthony says, in 2023, are most cloud architects work from home, or do different industries expect in-office people? Also, if I live in Arizona, what is the likelihood of having to move out of state to get a job?
Now, here's where it gets interesting, Anthony. As a rule, most architects are remote, but there's a caveat. You generally have to be in an area for which there's a lot of people. So what I mean by this is, Anthony, when I lived in the New York metro, and trust me, I don't like living in cold environments, but I lived in New York for a couple of years in the New York metro. I didn't travel very much, Anthony, and here's the reason why. Merrill Lynch was my customer. We were Bank of America. I dealt with these big, giant customers, and I didn't have to go very far because I had global environments that needed an architect like me to go design their $100 million and $200 million and $300 million solutions. It was great. Didn't have to travel. But, Anthony, I am not a big city guy. I'm especially not a New Jersey, New York guy. So I moved to Palm Beach, Florida, which was heaven for me. Warm weather, palm trees. I could go scuba diving all the time. I could practice yoga outside in the heat. It was paradise. Now, in Anthony, in Palm Beach, Florida, let me tell you, there's no Fortune 100 companies headquartered in Florida. So what did this mean? It meant that the airport was my new office. On Monday, I would jump in an airplane. I'd go to DC, give a speech, go to San Jose, give a speech, go to London, give a speech, and then come back home. And that was what it used to be like. And then Cisco invented the coolest video conferencing technology ever. It was called telepresence. And this is about 15 years ago. And what it was is they put these 50 and 60 and super high definition TVs with cameras. They painted every room to be the same. So you could literally talk to someone and felt like you were in the same room. They had TV monitors going, and you could play poker with people and see their facial expressions, the sweating. It was the coolest thing ever. And that took me from traveling, say, 300,000 miles a year to, say, traveling 25,000 miles a year. So the key is, Anthony, most of these positions are remote. You may get lucky in Arizona, potentially in Phoenix. You may find enough there. You may also have to move to a bigger city. Want to know a real secret, Anthony, to really live financially secure for the rest of your life? If you have to go to a place like California, New York, or New Jersey to get your first job, here's where you can use the power of arbitrage. Here's what I mean. In California, if you want to buy a house, a basic, 2-3 bedroom house, you have to earn $416,000 a year just to pay your mortgage. In New York, it's $300,000 a year. So what you can do in many cases, you can get a job in one of these big cities, do a good job for a year, and then come up with a family reason why you need to move someplace cheaper, like Phoenix or Scarsdale, and then work from home and actually keep your California or your New York pay. I did that. I took my New York pay with me to Palm Beach, Florida, and you can definitely do that. So you probably in today's world don't have to move out of state. Probably not. But if you struggle, you'll have to. Now, in a good economy like we were in about a year ago, you could work from home anywhere, anytime. Now, with things getting a little more tight, potentially you may need to move someplace, potentially, but not necessarily, to get a job in a tight economy. But once the economy heats up and you've proved yourself to be awesome, you can live anywhere you want. And I've also worked from my home in Greece and found that to be really fun. So as a rule, once you build a name for yourself, Anthony, it really doesn't matter. It's so hard to find somebody that's good. You'll get there. But you may have to move out of state for your first one. But hopefully not. I don't think you'll have to. But, just know it's a possibility.
All right. So let's see. All right. So here's our next question. I like networking, and I've been reading some networking stuff. If I want to become a cloud networking engineer, where should I start?
So was he the person that asked me about the infrastructure architect?
No, that was another individual.
Okay, so CSYSD Cameron, you're going to need the same list, but here as an engineer, you're going to have to be more technical than the architect. Remember, the architects are 50% tech, 50% business. Engineers are going to be a lot more technical. So you're going to have to, in this case, get really deep with your IP addressing, subnetting, and supernetting. Extremely deep with your EIGRP, OSPF, intermediate systems. Extremely deep on your EBGP and your IBGP, and not just how to design it, but now how to configure it. You're going to have to get extremely deep in your WAN technologies, the ones that I mentioned before. You're going to have to get extremely deep in these layer 2 protocols, whether they be spanning tree, rapid spanning tree, port channel, ether channel, link aggregation groups, VLANs, VLAN tagging, VLAN trunking kind of things, really, really deep. But you're not going to just have to know it as the architect. You're going to have to be able to configure it. So for the engineer, you almost need to know twice as much tech, and you're getting half of the pay. Keep that in the back of your mind than the architect. The architect's paid more because it's the business side. But, I had my fun as a network engineer and loved it. Same thing with DNS, DHCP, ARP, proxy ARP, same kind of thing with your GRE tunneling and your PIM-SPIRE stems mode and your internet group message protocol and all of those kind of things. Same thing as that architect. The only difference is the architect designs it and the engineer actually builds it. So it's that list. Now, I'll tell you right now, being a network engineer is awesome. I did it. I loved it. It was one of the most fun jobs I ever had. Then you're going to ask me why I left it for architecture. Well, 2 reasons. I was tired of having to come in at 3 o'clock in the morning to make networking changes, because you don't make networking changes during the day, because when you make networking changes, you break things. So you're going to be doing it at 2 o'clock in the morning. And I was tired of watching the architects take people to lunch on a corporate credit card and get paid twice as much as me while I was there working 14 hours a day and they were just buying lunches, dinners, and drinks. So I joined them as a network architect. But I love networking. I strongly encourage networking to anybody. If you're good at networking, guess what? You'll be one of the few, because 90% of the people in the job don't understand it. And when you have knowledge in networking, you can write your own ticket anywhere in the entire world.
All right. All right, let's see. Our next question is from Elizabeth. She says, "Hi, Mike and Chris. I have an associate degree. Do you think a degree in finance will benefit me in the long run for this career?" I'll give Mike a break for just a second. So any business education is going to be helpful. I'm assuming, based on previous questions that you've had in previous sessions, that we're talking architect. Yeah, anything in business is definitely going to be helpful. You don't necessarily have to have any college degrees, but it is a plus. Now, depending on what type of finance you have will determine how helpful it's going to be. If we're talking finance from the perspective of, and it's an associate degree, so I'm going to assume that it's business finance if it's an associate degree, or somewhat business finance related, not so much financial markets and things of that nature, because that would be hard to cover in an associate degree, I would assume. But if it's business finance and operational finance and that type of finance, then that will definitely be very helpful in this type of role. Now, going back to the other type of finance, if it is related to markets and that type of finance, if you've got that knowledge, then that would be very useful if you wanted to specialize in architecture roles for financial firms. That would be very helpful. So it really depends on what type of knowledge it is, and that's what that's what our program is all about. It's about finding that knowledge and that experience that you have, regardless of what it is, and figuring out how to utilize it to your advantage with this role, with this career. So I'll let Mike add his perspective.
And I agree with Chris 100% on what he said. Definitely helpful in the banking industry. Now, I would recommend as a rule to get it in management over finance. And the reason is, if you desire to be an architect, the architect is more about managing people than managing money. So if you were to do a management degree, you'll still be exposed to finance. But at the same time, it's more going to be about how do you lead people. So if you wanted to do a master's degree or a master's degree in finance, love it. It's going to help you. If you wanted to do it more in management, I think that's a little better. If you wanted to design systems for banks and banks alone, which is a highly lucrative place to be, then it would be totally, totally good. But, Elizabeth James, my preferred opinions are, when it comes to degrees, is an MBA in finance, unless you already have a finance degree as an associate degree. But that's not the way I took it. I took it that you have an associate degree and you're considering to get a degree in finance, if I read that correctly. So depending upon how I read that, I would say if you're going to do the degree, I would make it more in management, because I think it'll help you more. But if you love numbers and you truly love numbers, then finance is truly a great place. And if you do it in finance, by the way, if you don't like being a cloud architect, you could always be a financial advisor and do very well. And you could also get great finance jobs. Finance jobs are fantastic.
Yeah, definitely. So now that I've reread the question, I definitely want to amend my answer. If you've got a general associate's degree, I would not recommend getting a degree in finance. I would recommend getting a degree in management. If you've not already gotten something specific to finance, I misread it. So if you're trying to figure out whether to do a degree in finance or something else, do something else. Do management. That would be much more helpful in the general role of a cloud architect or a solution architect. So yeah, misread that one. So because finance is a very specific thing. Management is all about people.
It's exactly.
Yeah, management is all about people, situations, and operations, which is what architects deal with
all day.
All right, so misread that one. All right, let me find my window again. Here we go. All right, I want to remind everybody about our Cyber Monday sale that we've got going on. Don't miss this opportunity. It's the lowest price that our Cloud Architect Career Development Program plus live classes will ever be. After this discount, we won't be back at this price point
ever again.
So
and our prices will be going up substantially.
So just want to make sure everybody's aware of that. All right, so our next question is from Bliss. Bliss says, "Hi Mike, what is your advice on getting a first cloud security architect as a remote job?" So first, I'm going to recommend that you join our webinar tomorrow, because that's specifically about getting your first cloud job webinar. So now that I've made that pitch to hopefully get you to come hear us talk specifically about that, I'll let Mike give his insights on the security aspect. I don't think it's going to change much, but
no, it's honestly not. So, Bliss, you've got a couple options on how to do this. I recommend you come to our webinar and take our training. And here's the reason why. Architecture is an executive position. And unless you have an MBA plus additional soft skills experience plus tech design experience, it's going to cost you a fair amount. Now, I will tell you right now that I have a $250,000 education, and that's what it took for me to become a great architect. Now, I know full well, Bliss, that 99% of the population could not afford that, and I didn't pay for it all myself. Some companies paid for it, and I paid for it over 20-some years. That's why I created our program, because I know people can't afford it. What my advice is to get your first cloud security architect is, first, you must learn the network, the data center, and the cloud. And that means, and I'm not talking certifications, there's nothing in certification that's going to teach you how to do this. That means learning the network, which means IP addressing, subnetting, and supernetting. It learns the WAN technologies you'll use, from IPsec VPNs to software-defined networking to SASE to private lines, Ethernet, and TLS. It requires you to learn switching, and here's the reason why. There's a tremendous amount of security we do at layer 2 on the switching side, whether it be from access lists to things like that. So, and we're going to be dealing with hybrid clouds. 80% of the customers use more than one cloud, so you're going to need to know that. You're going to have to understand IP very well, because we're going to be dealing with all kinds of access lists on and off the cloud, layer 2 access lists, layer 3 access lists. You're going to have to understand that. Now, when it comes beyond that, you're still going to need to understand DNS, especially in the concept of DNSSEC and preventing DNS hijacking kind of things. You'll need to know less of the network of the data center technologies, but you're still going to need to understand servers and server virtualization. And you're really going to need to understand how to lock down servers, whether it's disabling unnecessary services, how they're patched, what kind of anti-malware thing, host-based firewalls, IDS, IPS systems. And then you're going to really need to understand the applications that are used in the business environment. And here's the reason. Most applications have security holes everywhere, and you have to open up security holes to use them. So you're going to have to understand the implications of what that means. Now, when we get beyond that, you're going to need to have a comprehensive understanding of next generation firewalls, because we're never going to be using this cloud native stuff. It's not strong enough, except for the Palo Alto on AWS. And you're going to need to understand firewall architecture and multiple firewall architecture and demilitarized zone architecture. And truthfully, you're going to need to have a good understanding of BGP, because there's a lot of security we use on that protocol as well. Now, you'll need to have good knowledge of identity and access management. You're going to need good knowledge of the authentication systems that are used, good knowledge of logging and event correlation. It's called SIEM. Good knowledge of data loss prevention strategies, good knowledge in how to design resilient systems, good knowledge in training people against anti-malware, anti-social engineering, anti-phishing campaigns, lots of knowledge in security frameworks, and lots of knowledge into designing security policies. Once you get past that, that's the technical component. Remember, this is a design, present, and sell job. So you're going to need to learn sales. You're going to need to learn how to build a business case. You're going to be presenting at conferences constantly, so you're going to have to learn how to deliver an expert level presentation, because the people that have the money are not the people that actually play with the tech. The engineers don't buy the tech. The CEO, the CIO, the CISO does. You're going to need some CXO relevancy training. On top of that, what you're going to need is some executive presence training, some emotional intelligence training, and some leadership training. Now, we create a lot of cloud security architects. Delroy Bott was one of them. Never worked in tech before in his life. 24 years old now, and he's got a beautiful cloud security architect. He turned down 3 jobs and chose the one he wanted. A few weeks ago, we got Robert Welch, a wonderful cloud security architect job. And we'd love to help you to get there. I created this program because just some of the training I talked about could literally cost you $50,000 to do it. And I don't want anybody to have to pay for it. I grew up extremely poor, worked 2 jobs full-time just to pay for school. And then thankfully, I was fortunate enough to work for employers that were willing to pay for things. Plus, I paid for a lot of training myself. But come tomorrow, and we'll tell you exactly what goes to being an architect. And, take advantage of our Black Friday deal if you want to train with us. If not, you can still learn these things elsewhere. You really can. Just understand you're not going to learn them in certification. If you don't train with us, you're going to need good security training. People that can truly teach you how to secure an environment, how to design high availability, high security environments. And then special management training, sales training, and leadership training, and presentation training, because that's the job. We design, present, and sell it. But I will tell you this, Liz, it is one of the best jobs you'll ever imagine. Delroy calls me every day now, and he's like, hey, guess what? I got to go to the steakhouse. Company paid for it, and people gave me a gift just to listen to them. It's that kind of fun. It's a great job.
All right. So we'll be wrapping up here in just a few minutes, but we'll get these last few questions.
And here you go. Robert Welch is even here saying with some things you can pop on the screen.
All right. So we'll get, all right, there you go. So Robert Welch says security is big and learning is never ending. Behavior analytics, IPsec, and MAP, Wireshark, PLC. All right, so The next question is, when choosing the industry to be an architect in, is it a bad idea to chase money? I'll start off with the answer to this one. So there's a couple of things to keep in mind when we're talking about this. Without regard to the industry or anything of that nature, there's two main things that you need to keep in mind. One, these roles have a high floor for a salary. Two, what is enough for you? You know, everybody has their expenses that they have. You know, what are your expenses? What do you need to be able to accommodate yourself and your family and take care of yourself for the future? Those are the two main things to keep in mind. After that, it's a balancing act between you and those numbers. Is it a bad idea to chase money? No. Is it a bad idea to chase money at the sacrifice of your mental health? Yes. Is it a bad idea to chase money? No. Is it a bad idea to chase money at the sacrifice of the balance with your family? Probably. Is it a bad idea to chase money? No. But is it a bad idea to chase money at the sacrifice of your ability to perform the job appropriately? Somebody may be offering you a ton of money for a job that you know you can't do properly. Should you take it? Probably not, because they'll find out pretty quickly that you can't do that job. And that really nice big payday there is not going to be there. So it's not a bad idea to chase money, but if you got to make sure that you're chasing it the right way. Is it what you want to do? Like, should you chase the money if it's something that you don't enjoy? That's going to affect your emotional health and your mental health. It'll affect your family. It'll affect everything about you. So it's not a bad idea to chase money, but it's a bad idea to chase money the wrong way. That's my 2 cents. I'll let Mike throw his in.
Wow, Chris, excellent answer. And Anthony, 2 things. One is I'm going to tell you how I did it, and then I'm going to ask Chris to show you a job that I actually show you to show you how much money you can earn at the high end to make it clear to you. So the first thing I want to tell you is, Anthony, I chased money when I was younger. I had a job at MCI WorldCom. I was a lead architect, and I loved it. Anthony, it was the greatest job I ever had. I had so much fun. Some WorldCom executives came and presented to me and our team. We were the most elite team there. One of the executives presented something, and I felt so sick, like I needed a shower. Something just gave me the creeps. I couldn't even describe it. I didn't know what it was. But I placed a phone call to Christina Marino, a recruiter at ITXL that I love. And the next day, I had 2 jobs. She had me working on Wall Street, Anthony, and let me tell you, they were the nicest people I actually worked for in the first job. You know, when you worked at 7 o'clock at night, you got to take a limousine. So everybody at 5:30 went for dinner. On the company would get steaks and scotch and nice wine. And then we'd all take the limousine service. And I got my first bonus, and it was incredible. And Anthony, I hated the job. I mean, I literally hated it. It was just no fun for me. It was like staring at a desk, doing the same thing day in and day out. I had a 2-hour commute back and forth to work each day, and it was a disaster. I then wanted out so bad. I didn't want to be like dealing with Jersey City, New York City every day, that I went and had 2 opportunities. One was for a major international global Cisco Gold partner, and the other was for a cable company. There was over $100,000 difference between the 2 jobs that I was offered at the time. And the one job I really wanted, because the cable company was like the phone company, I knew it was going to be a comfortable job. And the other company was going to be a mill. I just felt like it was a mill. And what happened is I told Comcast, I said, there's over $100,000 difference in pay between these 2 jobs. I spoke to my wife. I really think I have to take the other one. I said, but would you be willing to hold the job for me for a couple of days? If I don't like the job, I'll come here. And the manager, it was the director, he said, Mike, I like you so much. Yes. I went to the first day at that new job, Anthony. And as soon as I got there, this guy hugs me that I never saw in my entire life. And he says, I'm so glad you're here, new CCI. And he ran out the door. And I asked the sales rep that I was tied to, I said, what is this? And he said, oh, he's been trying to quit. And you're the first CCI they hired that can do the job. So he ran out the door. He was excited to leave. And I went, uh-oh. And then an hour later, Anthony, they dumped 6 RFPs, requests for proposals, in my lap and said, you have until Friday to get this done. And each one was a 300 to 500 page document. And I said, well, is this all I'm going to be doing for this week? Because this is going to put me into 20-hour days. He says, oh, no, I'm going to have 6 more for you by tomorrow. I said to the sales rep and the hiring manager, thank you so much for the opportunity. And I went to Comcast. Now, what I will tell you from personal experience is when you chase money, you're not happy. And your happiness matters more than anything. Now, Anthony, I learned a secret a long time ago. You can earn money at absolutely anything as long as you're good at it and you're passionate about it. It wasn't until years later when I worked for a company I did love that my manager said, Mike, look, here's the difference. And this is 20 years ago, between a $150,000 engineer and a $300,000 distinguished architect or engineer. And he told me it was about soft skills and emotional intelligence and executive presence and sales skills. Anthony, I got the training. A year later, I was earning more money than I could ever possibly imagine. But the thing was, I did it in something I loved. So what I would tell you to do is, Anthony, you're a young guy, you're a smart guy, I know you, you're awesome. You don't want to be miserable. If you're miserable, you won't perform your job well. And if you don't perform your job well, you're not going to get promoted. If you're miserable, it'll affect your health. If you are miserable, it'll affect your family. And when your family's out of whack, I promise you, everything's a disaster. You got a wife and a brand new baby, Anthony. Make sure that you love your life. It's not a marathon where it's how long can I do this? It's not a sprint, it's a marathon. So what I would say, Anthony, is do something that makes you happy. But, Anthony, and I know you, focus on being the best at whatever it is. I know network engineers are earning $500,000 a year because they're good at BGP. I know architects that get paid anything you could possibly imagine. Chris, can you just share the screen for a point? I just want to prove the concept that architect jobs can pay you whatever you want as long as you're passionate at it or you're good at it. So I saw this job basically a day or two ago. Here's a remote job for a chief architect for $800,000 a year. You've heard me talk about it, and then people say, Mike, I don't know architects that are getting paid much. And I say, well, what's their focus? Certification? They say, yeah, they're 20X certified. And I say, yeah, they're not getting paid anything. They're going to be at the lowest of the totem pole because they don't have this. Now, when you actually look at this, what they're really looking for, and you read the full job description, they're looking for a business leader that knows how to recommend solutions, that knows how to tune the business performance.
I like that location also. That's not a very normal location.
And it's not. No, they actually had a chief software architect role for $800,000 too. They had a lot of these $800,000 chief architect roles in this organization. And the point is, Anthony, you can make money at anything if you're good. So, Anthony, I know you. I have a tremendous amount of respect for you. I know how smart and motivated you are. I'm going to tell you, do what you love. And when you do what you love, someone like you, with your passion and fire in your belly, is going to be so capable at anything. You're going to rise to the top. So just be the best. Really, I mean, just find something you love and become really great at it. And if you're Simone Biles, it's gymnastics. I mean, if you ever watched her, it's extraordinary. If you're Michael Phelps,
you're making it hard for me to take care of your voice.
Okay, well, you get all right.
Sorry, we still got questions to get to. All right. So Sean asked this one, and I don't think Mike and I can answer specifically about it, but we can definitely answer part of it. Would cloud architect be a good career for a husband and wife?
Yes. I think it would be. Now, I've been an architect forever. Now, before I was an architect, I used to practice medicine. You know what my wife does? practiced medicine. And you know what was really good? We both understood each other because we were the same person. And when I became an architect, Sean, you know what I did? Hey, I have to go to Spain. Love, would you like to come with me? And she'd come with me all the time. Dear, I'm going to go to Dubai. Want to come with me? I don't want to go. Okay, well, I'll go enjoy the beautiful side and fun myself. Dear, I have to go to San Francisco. I'm coming. So I would tell you that being an architect is going to be a much better career than being an engineer as a rule. And here's the reason why. As an architect, you have a pretty manageable schedule. It's not the most high-stress job in the world, and you're going to come home happy. As an engineer, you're going to work twice as many hours for half the pay, and the people are going to work you and work you and work you. And look, I have friends. I have my buddy Moses. He loves engineering. He's been an engineer for 40 years now, maybe 30 years. And every time I go to his house, he's the most technology-enabled thing, and he loves it. I mean, he truly, truly, truly loves it. He loves it.
Let's get back to the question about a husband and wife working together in a cloud architect role.
Yeah, why wouldn't it be terrific? There are people that
and I'm going to share the alternative to this. If you're both working in the same job, in the same company, in the same industry, you never leave work. You have to leave work. And your family can't be your work. So that comes from my personal experience of having worked in the same position, in the same company, in the same industry, not necessarily as an architect, but same concept, same position, same industry. If you're both, all you talk about, all you do, everything is all about this singular role. It can be boundaryless, and there has to be some definition between work and personal. There has to be. Otherwise, you run the risk of running yourself into the ground and not realizing it until you've already done it. Not everybody can do it. And
there's something to be said for that. Now, my wife and I went to school together. We had full-time jobs together. So we went to school together where we were not in control. Neither one of us was the boss. She actually got hired and got promoted where I worked, and she was my boss. So she was my manager there. And then we'd come home for the next 6 hours, and she was my manager there too. So
how many decades did y'all do that for?
About 5 years.
5 years. There you go.
I think it was the most fun I ever had in my life, honestly.
Right. 5 years. Wait till you get to year 7 or 8 or 9. 5 years was great. I loved it at 5 years. 6 years, I loved it. 7 years, it was like, oh boy. Okay. 8 years. 9 years, 10 years. The longer you do it, the more you realize that there's not anything outside of it. So if you do both work as cloud architects, I would definitely recommend trying not to work in the same company, or if you work in a company large enough to work in two completely separate areas that you never overlap, and therefore it would be interesting to have conversations about your work outside of work. All right. Let's see. I'm trying to see. I gotta wrap it up. Evo asks, Mike, how much does cloud network and AWS make? I'm not sure what that means, but
so I'm going to answer this one.
You're a cloud network specialist, regardless of the thing, you're going to make more than just a cloud architect.
So Evo, I think you're asking the wrong question. Cloud network engineers versus cloud architects exist in both clouds. Why would you want to limit yourself to AWS? There are companies that pay 10 times more than AWS for cloud networking people. And here's the thing. If you work for a bank, there was 1 year where the average bonus at Goldman Sachs was $600,000 a year for the average employee. Now, Goldman Sachs has cloud network engineers and cloud network architects. I've got friends at other companies earning $500,000 a year as cloud network architects. Why would you limit yourself to AWS? Why not Azure? Why not Google? Why not any big tech company? Why not the phone company? Why not Best Buy, for example, or Target, or Goldman Sachs, or Bank of America? So when you only try and pick out one employer, and it's not a great employer or great in terms of the size of all these jobs out there, you're basically limiting yourself to the smallest amount. So the thing is, I wouldn't worry about what AWS pays. I'd worry about what you can earn.
All right. Let's see. Next question. I'm offered a position as a cybersecurity architect. Is there a knowledge gap between that and a cloud security architect?
Not much, James. Here's the thing. Whether you're securing a data center or a cloud, it's identical. The only thing is the data center is a little more secure because you've got less attack vectors. Same next generation firewalls, same IDS, IPS. You're not going to use any of this cloud security stuff. It's not strong enough. So if you've got a cybersecurity architect job, it's the same job on the cloud. I mean, it's the same. Now, we may not be using a physical firewall. We may be using a virtual firewall on a virtual machine. And we may need to use a software load balancer like an Elastic load balancer versus an F5 load balancer. It's the same thing. And in most cases, you're not going to use most of the cloud stuff anyway. All that stuff they teach in AWS Advanced Security is a joke. You're going to be using the real industrial grade stuff anyway. So it's going to be 90% the same job. When you do it on the cloud, it'll be a little harder because we're going to have to work around the weaknesses in the cloud. But the job's the same for the most part. If you can do one, you can do the other.
All right. All right. And last question, because we need to wrap it up. I'll start off with it. How much time do I have to dedicate to get my feet on the way to being a cloud architect? I'm not sure. Don't know what previous knowledge you might bring to the table. Don't know how much time you can dedicate during a week or during a month or during a day to learning. Don't know how you learn. Don't know if you need to review things multiple times and etc. Everybody learns differently. Everybody has outside obligations, so it's difficult to answer that question. If you're starting from scratch, it can take up to 8 months probably for you to be ready to be hired. Now, you said get your feet on the way to being a cloud architect, so you can be on your way and have a good rhythm in place in a couple of weeks or a month, but there's just a wealth of knowledge if you're starting from scratch that there's no way for us to be able to answer that question for you. But in general, someone starting from scratch can take up to 8 months
with our training,
right, to be adequately prepared. Now, if you're doing it on your own, there's no telling, because there's no telling what if you're learning the right stuff, if you're retaining any information, if you're preparing for the correct role. But with our training and in our sphere, it can take up to 8 months. It can take shorter, but somebody starting from complete scratch, it can take up to 8 months. Doesn't mean that people won't try to hire you before then. There's a reason why I mentioned the are you ready to take the job when answering Anthony's question about the salary. It's like, yeah, the salary can look great, but if you're not ready for the job, you don't want to go after it. But it's very subjective to you as an individual. So it's hard for us to give a specific answer for you specifically for that question. Ebo, so should I learn all cloud vendors to fit into the cloud industry? No. So AWS, Azure, Google is like Ford, GMC, and Toyota. They all make cars, they all make clouds, they all make steering wheels, they all make motors, they all make engines, and they're all the same thing. Steering wheels work the same as steering wheels. Engines work the same as engines. Brakes work the same as brakes. So virtual machines work the same as virtual machines. Storage works the same as storage. Load balancers work the same as load balancers. All of these things are the same. So you don't have to learn all the cloud vendors. You just have to learn the cloud. Just like you learn how to drive or you learn how to ride a bike. You know, you don't learn how to ride just a Schwinn bike. You learn how to ride a bike. Just whatever bike somebody hands you, you learn how to ride it. And then you can ride any bike. You learn how to drive a car, you can drive any car. You learn the cloud, you can navigate and work on any cloud. Obviously, you'll have to familiarize yourself with the crazy terms that they come up with. But once you know the cloud, then you can figure out the terms. Luckily, car companies use the word steering wheel for steering wheel, no matter what the car company is. Luckily, cloud providers aren't the same. They don't say virtual machine for virtual machine. Some of them do. Some of them come up with crazy words, elastic cloud, elastic compute cloud, or whatever.
It's crazy.
But storage is blob or blob, blob and
S3 and
S3. It's
cloud
like
storage.
It's block storage and
No, so object storage with
and file storage. There's no
different
blobs, but okay.
And I'm going to carry that a little bit more. Ebo, here's the thing. 90% of the networking stuff isn't done on the cloud anyway. It's Cisco and Juniper stuff that you're going to have to learn from them. And that's why the AWS Advanced Security isn't even an intro to junior level anything. Now,
that's why AWS isn't even supporting some of their stuff anymore. They're like Cisco.
In fact, AWS tried to do their transit thing, and they're like, you know what, we can't do it. Now, I'll tell you, Ebo, right now, AWS cloud networking is 20 years old. In fact, there's this principal engineer that constantly talks about stuff. Oh my God, brand new, exciting. We can run IPsec over direct connection. And I reached out to a buddy of mine. I said, didn't you do this in 1998? I did it in 1999. And he said, sure. So the thing is, it's all the same. If you had to cook a chicken dinner, and here's what architecture is, planning the menu. If you needed chicken, if it's Billy Bob's Chicken Farm, if it's Acme, if it's Aldi, or if it's Carrefour in France, you just go to buy chicken. And it's the same thing. So when you learn the underlying technology, you can literally work everywhere. My cat loves these little fuzzy balls. She likes to change them. I don't taste them. I don't know why. Sometimes I get them at Amazon. Sometimes I get them at Petco. Sometimes I get them at PetSmart. Here's the key. The cat chases them either way because it's the same fuzzy ball, probably made in the same manufacturing place. It doesn't matter. Learn the tech and you'll work anywhere.
All right. So our last question is going to be from Ben. This will be our last question. Make sure to register at the webinar up above. If you want to ask us more questions, you can even come off mute on that webinar and ask us questions. We'll be there tomorrow for you. So last question for today. Ben says, how should an architect keep up with the latest technologies? How do you stay current? Before Mike talks, I'm going to give my answer. If you're wanting to stay up with the latest technologies, then you need to read the resources provided by the technology providers. If you want to keep up with Cisco technologies, then keep up with Cisco technologies. Go straight to the source. Same with other providers. Mike, your thoughts?
My thoughts are a little different, and here's the reason why. Ben, if you truly understand the technology, it actually never changes. So if you ever want to see where the specifications come from, they come from the Internet Engineering Task Force. And about 30 years ago, written by the Old Society of Old Farts, as they literally put themselves on as the authors on this, they said technology never changes, every idea changes. Ben, if I told you right now that Cisco NetFlow 20 some years ago told you what your traffic was like, and then 20 years later, AWS reinvented and they called VPC flow logs. If I told you that 20 years ago we were doing IPsec over a private line and AWS just made a brand new thing and said, woohoo, exciting, guess what, we now support it. Almost every idea, so virtualization is the basis of all cloud computing. 30 years ago with Cisco, I learned the virtual LAN, which was chopping a switch into multiple switches. 20 years ago, VMware came out with the virtual machine. Now, every virtual machine on every cloud provider is the same technology that VMware created 20 some years ago, back in 1999, the hypervisor. Then about 2002, Cisco invented this technology called the private VLAN, okay? And in a private VLAN, you could have two servers that couldn't talk to each other inside of the same VLAN. About 10 years ago, the concept of a container came out. And in a container, you had two isolated things that couldn't talk to each other in the same operating system. Reiteration of the old thing. Every service you use in the cloud is just a new, less effective version of what we had in the data center that's now been virtualized. Then when your fundamentals are good, you'll see that almost nothing has actually changed in the last 30 years. The names have changed, how we implement them has changed, but the underlying technology is still the same. First cloud I worked on was in 1996. That's right, 1996. Next one was in 1998. Next one was in 2000. The one after that was 2001, before the AWS cloud. It's all the same, Ben. That's why we focus so hard on our fundamentals. And that's why when there's a new press release from AWS that says, look at this exciting thing we did, I get emails from all the other architects. They're like, didn't Cisco do that back in 2003? And I'm like, yep, not a new invention. So when your fundamentals are good, then you just read the new documentation. They'll be like, okay, meet the new boss, same as the old boss, but the name has changed. That's how you do it. And then obviously read everything, but master those fundamentals.
So where does the documentation come from?
The manufacturers themselves.
Okay. So you and I agree.
Yes.
All right. So all right. So that's the last.
Wait. Noah Parker, who's our student, just says he got a cloud job.
All right. That is awesome. Congratulations, Noah.
Congratulations, Noah.
Feel
I'm
free
so
to
happy
share
for
any
you.
information that you want. You can share it on Slack if you feel like it, but if you want to share here on YouTube, you're more than welcome to. But I look forward to you sharing with us on Slack as well. Congratulations, Noah. Great job. Woo!
Congratulations,
Hey,
Noah.
look who's here just in time for the celebration.
I'm so happy to hear this, Noah. I live for this when somebody tells me they got cloud hired. Noah, I am beyond excited for you. Noah Parker, you've been wonderful to work with. From the beginning you came in, we were excited working with you. Moving to Chicago, I'm so happy for you. Please tell me where you went offline. I'm so excited. Congratulations again. You know, I work 16 hours a day. I know Chris and Alonzo put in some crazy hours because they get text messages from me 24 hours a day, which is, I'm a little sorry for that, by the way, but it's all to get you guys hired. So cloud hired. I'm so happy for you. You have no idea how happy I am.
See, that even got Alonzo to join us.
Alonzo is traveling today. I don't know where he even found the place, but you know, he's traveling and he's still excited about it.
Yeah. All right. Congratulations, Noah. That is great. Great news. Look forward to you sharing that with us.
Can't wait to
All
hear
right. Well, we are done for the day. Make sure now Alonzo knows.
Now Alonzo's able to respond.
He's,
Robert Welch was our student. We love Robert.
I could not wait. I couldn't wait to get here. I was like excited, and then when we saw Noah say he got a cloud job, I you know, it's kind of like these are my brothers. It's like I can't be away from family when we're working. We're trying to get things knocked out, get things, and when I get on the back end and see Noah got a cloud job. This is amazing. Yeah. I love hearing this. I am excited about it.
And that's why we're focused on architecture roles right now in a down economy, not engineering, because we're still getting architects hired every single day.
Hey, we didn't get a lot of cloud engineering questions, so it's just we're gonna end it. All right. So make sure to join us tomorrow for our How to Get Your First Cloud Architect Job webinar. Let me put the link in the chat box again here. In case anybody missed it. Also, I want to remind everybody that we've got our Cyber Monday discount going on as well. In case you missed Black Friday last week, we've got the Cyber Monday discount for 35% off of our Cloud Architect Career Development Plus program and payment plans for that program as well. So make sure you take advantage of that. I think that one expires on Wednesday. So if you want to use it and you got any questions, make sure to join us tomorrow. It is only good for a short time. So let me get the, let me see. Let me get that, in the chat box. Not really sure what that means, Mike, but all right. All right, so I'm going to put this link in the chat box. All right. So there is our Cyber Monday discount. All right. So now that you've joined us, Alonzo, you got any last words? Even though they'd be first words for you.
Oh yeah, I coming on. You know what? Coming on the tail end of this and just listen and hearing Noah's good news, I strongly encourage everyone to reach out to Noah. Look at how he diligently attacked the development program, what his thoughts were, what his discipline was. If you're struggling or you need some inspiration, I think you just got it. And just reach out, strengthen your brand, strengthen your networking, reach out to Noah. And, you know, I don't want to sound like a be like Mike Nike situation, but do what Noah did. Get cloud hired. Do the work that needs to be done. Be tenacious. Attack the challenges that we present before you. Get involved with the community. Put your camera on. Reach out. Ask questions. And let's go. Okay. I'm excited for you. Even if you haven't got your cloud job now, I know you will. And just keep going and keep working at it. Okay.
There we go. We're going to call you Coach Alonzo. There we go. Coach Coleman. All right. Yeah. Who needs to can't beat that pep talk. All right. Well, thank you, Alonzo, for those great words. Mike, any last words?
Yeah. Take charge of your dreams. You know, let this holiday season give the best gift in the world to your family. Increase your education, increase your earning opportunity. And then next year, your family can have whatever they want. Have the financial freedom to not worry about your kids' education. Have the financial freedom to get your husband or wife exactly what they desire. And it's killing me that we're forced to raise our prices. They're coming very soon. This is the last time. We just have no choice. This is the last time we can ever offer it at this price. So take advantage. Be like Delroy. Be like Robert Welch. Be like Noah. Be like everybody and get cloud hired and sign up now. And when you're hired too, it'll affect me just about as much as it affects for Noah. I know Chris and Alonzo will feel the same way.
Yeah. Yep. All right. Well, I can't beat the way that we ended the show. Thank you, Noah, for popping on here and sharing that good news with us. I know I'm excited about it. I don't show my emotions very much, but that's so this is about as excited as you get from me. But yeah, definitely exciting news. Look forward to hearing from you on Slack. And look forward to everybody else that's joined us over the past few days. Can't wait to get you guys started. And there's still time to take advantage of that Cyber Monday discount, everybody. So,
Chris and Mike, before we go, and I know we've got things to do, but could we get a hashtag Noah Parker for him?
Oh, yeah. There we go. Hashtag Noah Parker. I like that.
And reach out. And if Noah has, I'm sure he does, perhaps he might be open to receiving new connections on LinkedIn as well.
All right. Hashtag Noah Parker. There we go. I got my
hashtag. Noah.
All right. All right. Keep those hashtags Noah Parker coming in. All right, everybody. Now we don't have a head in the clouds this week. We decided to let AWS have the floor. We knew we'd take away too much of their audience if we did head in the clouds. We didn't want to do that to them. So make sure you're getting your good content information straight from the sources. Don't look for anybody to summarize these AWS events this week. Just go watch the AWS events.
Exactly.
Just go straight to the source. So we hope y'all have a great week. Enjoy it. And we might have something exciting for you at the end of the week once it's all over.
Might. Something exciting.
All right. Good night. Good night. Goodbye, everybody.
Good night, everyone.